after we make it.
Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان الله سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
All right, brothers and sisters, we're going to be getting started with one of our Kahoot nights again very soon, inshallah. If I can make a request to all the brothers praying Salat and Sunnah, if you could shift over a little bit to my left or your right when you guys are praying so we can set up an appropriate inshallah.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Tonight, inshallah, we're going to talk about the fourth Khalifa of the Muslim Ummah after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ali ibn Abi Talib. All of us learned about Ali ibn Abi Talib to certain level in Sunday school, primary school, middle school. You don't hear me? You really anybody else doesn't hear me? So we're gonna use wireless.
Wired mic should be better.
But the brother doesn't hear me. Because of the noise? No, the noise is still gonna increase in a little bit. I'll try to raise my voice anyway, inshallah. And all the other brothers and sisters, please quiet down so everybody can hear and everybody can enjoy, inshallah. So we learned all about Ali ibn Abi Talib to some extent. Tonight we're going to cover, of course, life is full of events, full of activities, full of, worthy stuff to talk about. But we cannot talk about everything in his life. So we're going to take glimpses of his life, radiallahu anhu wa arda. Next slide. Next slide. Jazakallah.
Everyone, guys, we're trying to get started, so if we could ask the sisters in the back and the kids in the back to please keep it down.
No, sit down. Sit down. I'll give you one. But when you are quiet, sitting down and listening, okay? Okay, so first slide. Ali ibn Abi Talib was, as we said, was the fourth Khalifa of Muslims. Fourth Khalifa. After who? Who was before him? Uthman. Who said Uthman? Okay, right here. Okay, good. So as long as you are alert and answering my questions, inshallah we'll give you some candy, and Safi also will give you some. Okay, so he was the fourth Khalifa after Uthman. Uthman was assassinated, as we said, by those who were called later on Al-Khawarij. We will get into that. It is a sad part of our history anyway, but we will have to cover it, inshallah. And he ruled for how many years? 5 years. Only 5 years. Actually 4 and some months, 4 and 9 months, something like this. But we will say 5 years for the reason of this contest. Make a note of this. From year 35 Hijri to year 40 Hijri, when he was also assassinated by one of the Khawarij. We will get to that later. And he was known, of course, all his life to be devoted to Islam and helping the cause of Muslims and being with the Prophet ﷺ all the time, helping him in all aspects. And during these 5 years, it was 5 years of a mess, actually, in the Muslim world. A lot of fights between Muslims, each other, and so on. But he was trying and he did his best to keep the Muslim state together and keep it strong as much as he could. Okay, next slide. Sophie. Okay. Ali was 30 years old, 30 years younger than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was 40 years old, Ali was how many years old? 10. Subtraction, good in subtraction. And this is when the message started being revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet became a prophet at the age of 40, and Ali was 10 years old at that time. And Ali was the first child to accept Islam from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once the Prophet told him, I became a prophet, there is something called Islam. Do you believe in Allah and believe in me as a prophet of Allah? he accepted right away. MashaAllah. And that was at the age of 10 years old. And the Prophet actually was the one who raised Ali ibn Abi Talib in his household for many years before that, because his uncle Abu Talib was not that rich. He was still one of the leaders of Quraysh and stuff, but he was not that rich, and he had too many children. So Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam took Ali to his household, and he raised him and took care of him in his young age. Where is Safi? Okay, next slide, Safi. Okay, I'll talk about it. Okay, Ali was a great help, of course, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We know once the message was revealed to the Prophet, he was persecuted and he had many problems with Quraysh and many challenges facing him during that time. And Ali was always beside him, trying to support him and help him till actually the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was beside him all the time. One of the incidents that worthy of talking about, when the ayah was revealed, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and warn your close relatives. وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, warn your close relatives, talking to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he told Ali ibn Abi Talib, prepare some food and gather the people. And this is a good way to gather the people, to talk to them for anything, is to prepare some food for them. Get some food and then they will. Okay. So it's a good way of talking to the people when you have food for them. When you provide something for them, they come over and they try to be socializing and so on. And it is a good time to talk to them. And this is when the Prophet ﷺ talked to his relatives at that time in Mecca. They were still in Mecca at that point. Next slide, Safi, inshallah, we'll have a correction, he said that, and then he will talk about this slide.
So there's a quick correction. So it's of the sword of wisdom, which is basically the concept is that double-edged blade, right? It looks kind of like this, like two blades, right? So that's an actually common misconception. From our research, we found that that sword actually belonged to Ibn Majusi. Now, the sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib was called Dhul for a reason. Dhul is like a spine, the vertebrae in your spine. So if you look at your spine, right, all those edges, right, all the vertebrae, that's what Dhul represented. So that's what it was called for. The sword was actually a barbed longsword. Okay? But it's a common misconception. If you do see it on the quiz, just label it as if you thought you won't lose points. But historically, you guys can check this out too. I encourage you to do your own research. Zulfikar was a barbed sword, and the common misconception is it was the double blade. So, Ali radiallahu anhu was known for his courage. He was a really fierce, really strong warrior in battle. He was also known for his wisdom. He was very wise and accepted Islam at a very young age. At the time of the Hijrah, he bravely rested in Rasulullah's bed, so that when the Quraysh came to assassinate Rasulullah, he was willing to take his sword by sleeping in his place in the middle of the night. And then he stayed there while Rasulullah and Abu Bakr left Mecca. He also stayed behind after they left to return everything that was owed, like the Rasulullah and Abu Bakr owed to the people. He stayed afterwards to return it. So in this matter, he was very, very brave. For someone so young, he was willing to lose his life for Islam even at a very young age.
Okay, next slide. So Ali stayed in the bed of the Prophet ﷺ for two reasons. The night of Hijrah, make note of this. One is to deceive the people surrounding us. Well, it is narrated that he was born in the Kaaba, but I just want to warn that a lot of things, especially about Ali ibn Abi Talib, comes from Shia side. So some of them are not true or are not verified, are not accurate. Let me keep it this way. I'm not sure if he was really born in Al-Kaaba or not, but this doesn't add to his value and to his, to our respect to him, radiallahu anhu. Okay? So next slide is that Ali migrated right after the Prophet ﷺ migrated it's narrated that about 3 days, he returned the trust that the Prophet ﷺ told him to the people of Mecca, and then he went to travel in the daytime. Usually at that time, Muslims will try to hide, try to travel at night so they don't get exposed or stopped by Quraysh, who was very mad at that time. But he went in the daytime, and he took with him 4 Fatimas, all of them called Fatima. And that caravan was called in the history the Fatima caravan. One of them was his mother, Fatima bint Asad. Make note of this, Fatima bint Asad. And the second one was Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ. She was very young at that time. They were not married yet. Ali married Fatima later on in Medina, but they were not married at that time when she traveled with him. And Fatima bint al-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, and Fatima bint Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. And then when some of the poor Muslims that cannot afford traveling or scared to travel alone, they joined that caravan with Ali radiallahu anhu. Of course, some group of fighters of Quraysh tried to stop the caravan, and Ali talked to them, told them, you better keep us alone. We are going to travel. You cannot stop us. Please go back to Mecca. Nobody will stop us from migrating. But they insisted on trying to stop him, so he immediately killed one of them. And the other, and of course, the men with him fought with the other people, and they ran away. The other people ran away. And he was successful to take that caravan safe back to Medina, when he met with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Quba, which is on the suburbs of the Medina, and then they entered Medina together. That caravan with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them entered the Medina together at that time. So Qafilat al-Fawatim, or the Fatima's caravan, had Fatima bint Asad, Fatima bint Muhammad, Fatima Zahra bint Muhammad radiallahu anha, and also Fatima bint Hamza and Fatima bint al-Zubayr. Okay, remember that. Next slide. So when the Muhajirun migrated to Medina, what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did was he paired Muhajir and Ansari. So these two were essentially like brothers. So a Muhajir, meaning the people who immigrated with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Mecca, were called Muhajirun. So one of the Muhajirun, the people from Mecca, were also paired with one of the Ansar, the people from Medina. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose Ali as his brother, and then Ali further on got married to Fatima, the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So not only was he his cousin, this shows the close kinship, the close ties that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had with Ali radiallahu anhu. He was deeply ingrained in every aspect of his family. They had 5 children, Hassan and Hussein and Muhsin, who passed at an early age, Zainab and Kulthum. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very close to Ali radiallahu anhu.
track of his children and keep track of his, who Ali radiallahu anhu got married to.
Okay, so Ali had 5 children actually from Fatima.
Okay. The most famous one of them is who? Al-Hussein. Who said Al-Hussein? Who said? You said? You're good. Al-Hussein is the most famous one. But the older one was Al-Hassan. Al-Hassan was the older one, but he was kind of quiet guy, gentleman, you know, easygoing. Not like Al-Hussein. Al-Hussein was confronting. You know, whenever he sees something right, he just confronts. He was nice also. He was good. Actually, we respect him a lot. Radiallahu anhu wa ardah. But his personality was a little different than Al-Hassan, the older one. And then they had also Al-Muhsin. And Al-Muhsin died in the very early age. Different stories about Al-Muhsin. Some said it was a miscarriage. Some said he was very young, like few months old, and so on. But he doesn't have any history to talk about. And then also Zainab bint Ali and Kulthum. So he had those from Aisha, from Fatima. Remember those. Of course, Ali ibn Abi Talib had many other children from other wives later on.
Correction on this slide. If you guys look, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is listed as the second Khalifa here. Quick correction, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, we all know, was the first Khalifa. So that's a little bit of a mistake on that slide. Also, side note here is the imamat. There were, as in Sunni Islam, we don't believe in that. We believe in the 4 or 5 directions of guiding Khulafa, and the imamat is not something we follow. So just a side note, it's going to come up. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was the first Khalifa, and then Umar, Uthman, and then Ali radiallahu anhu, and some scholars say Umar.
Okay, actually this slide, come back to that slide because it's good to talk about. I didn't know that you would catch that second Khalifa, but this is actually from a Shia source. I was just talking about Shia sources that sometimes they misinform people. So the second Khalifa here was Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr was the first Khalifa after the Prophet ﷺ. They consider him, and this is the confusion they have actually, that they consider him the second Khalifa and they consider Ali the first Khalifa, even though in the same slide they put Ali as the 4th Khalifa. And then they put Al-Hassan as the second Imam, which is Imam later. So they have some confusion also, and we don't care about their confusion. Abu Bakr, of course, was the first Khalifa. Umar is the second. Who was the third? Uthman. Okay. There you go. Uthman was the 3rd Khalifa, and then Ali ibn Abi Talib was the 4th Khalifa. Next slide. Okay, the people of paradise. In the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ gave glad tidings to 10 of the Sahaba. He said, Abu Bakr fil Jannah, Umar fil Jannah, Uthman fil Jannah, Ali fil Jannah, Az-Zubayr in al-Jannah, Talha in al-Jannah, and so on. He named 10 of them that are listed here. So among them was Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. And also the Prophet ﷺ gave a glad tidings, not directly, but indirectly to Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein, when he said that they are Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. They are the best of the youth in Jannah. Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein radiallahu anhuma, the grandchildren of the Prophet ﷺ. Next slide.
Ali radiallahu anhu being Khalifa, being a Sahabi, being from the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was very, very gifted at fighting. He was very, very gifted at fighting. So this is the sword that I was talking about. So this one is the common misconception. That is not accurate for this. If it comes up in the Kahoot, just say it is. But the sword of Ali radiallahu anhu was essentially a barbed longsword. Okay? this was the sword of the Majusi. It's a common misconception. It's one that's very easily confusing, but just keep track of that. So, Ali radiallahu anhu participated in a number of campaigns, notably the Battle of Badr, where he was amongst the first people. So in the Battle of Badr, before the battle, there would be duels. At the time, in that time in ancient Arabia, there used to be duels. So before the fighting would start, essentially what you would do is you would challenge a person on the enemy's side to a duel, where you would engage in one-on-one combat till you killed the other person, or until the other person couldn't fight anymore. It was considered an esteemed honor only reserved for the best fighters, and it showed the skill of Ali radiallahu anhu. Ali killed his opponent, Hamza killed the third opponent, and they saved Harith, who fell to his opponent and lived. He was also one of the main reasons that the Sahaba won Khaybar, the Battle of Khaybar, and the only battle he didn't attend was Tabuk, when he was left in charge of Medina when the Muslims were away.
So the only battle that he did not attend was Tabuk. Even though if this picture is not the correct picture of the sword of Ali, even though it is widely spread, and there is also in some museums in Najaf in Iraq, and also in Turkey, of Istanbul in Turkey, there are some of the remaining items from Ali ibn Abi Talib. Among them is his sword. But his sword was named Zulfuqar. So even though the picture might not depict the right sword, but the name of his sword was Zulfuqar when it comes to that question. And the only battle that he missed with the Prophet ﷺ was Tabuk. The only reason, because the Prophet ﷺ left him in charge of Medina. Next slide. Next slide. You're going to talk about this? Oh, I talk about? Okay, several verses were revealed in Ali ibn Abi Talib. As we said, and we'll always say that some of the Shia sources are putting, more verses revealed in Ali than it actually is. But some of them are confirmed to be revealed in Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu anhu, because of his role in Islam and his early, becoming a Muslim, marrying the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he was very close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the verses when it was revealed in Ali. This verse you see on the screen: يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكرا. This was revealed in Ali, and the story basically that Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein were very ill. Very ill. They thought that they're going to die. And they prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them recovery. And they made nadhr. And nadhr is something in Islam that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something and you pledge to Allah, if this something happens, I will do this and that. So the family at that time, Ali, and followed by Fatima, and then followed by their servant, Fadda, they made nadhr that if Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein got cured, they will fast for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And while they were fasting after they recovered and gained health back, the first night before iftar, a very poor person knocked their door and asked for food. And they had just enough for them. But Ali ibn Abi Talib gave him the food. And the second night, same thing happened, but Fatima was at the door at that time, and she gave the food to an orphan. And of course, we are supposed to help orphans a lot. Because orphans, they don't have a father that takes care of them. And the lack of a father in the family is severe. And it is enough for people to be, helping them. And of course, us as Muslims right now, we live in a time that we have a lot of orphans in Palestine, in Iraq, in Lebanon now, in Syria, and so on. So we need to consider that when we are putting some money aside for charity, for orphans. And then the third night, a prisoner of war, and prisoners of war at that time, they didn't have to be tied down somewhere or something. They can just walk in the streets, but they cannot leave the city. And he knocked on the door and asked for food, and they gave him faddah this time, gave him the food of the family. The story might be exaggerated a little bit, that they drank only water those 3 nights, maybe, but at least they offer some of their little food to the poor person, to the orphan, and to the prisoner of war. And this is when this verse was revealed, that they are doing this only for the sake of Allah. They don't want any reward, any thanking, or any appreciation from the people. They want only the appreciation from Allah. Next slide, Sophie.
So, after Uthman radiallahu anhu was assassinated, the Muslims chose Ali radiallahu anhu as the 4th Khalifa. He ruled for 5 years until he was assassinated by Abdurrahman. So one of the Khawarij, it's complicated, but essentially what happened was, this man, he assassinated Ali radiallahu anhu while he was praying. The assassination of Ali came in retaliation for the Battle of the Hawan, where the Muslims under the leadership of Ali defeated and destroyed the power of the Khawarij, who early killed Uthman. It sounds complicated, but what happened basically is this guy was really sour for their loss in the battle, and so he took it out and killed Ali radiallahu anhu.
Yes, we know from the story of
Uthman that Uthman was killed by one of them. And then actually all the problems that happened later on between the Sahaba themselves and Muslims themselves were because of that incident of killing Uthman. We will come to that later on, but Ali ibn Abi Talib did not give up on Al-Khawarij, and he fought them very badly, at least the ones that remained stubborn of them, because he met them. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, the other cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, they met with Al-Khawarij and discussed with them and made debates with them, and a lot of those Khawarij came back to the Muslim states. But some of them were too stubborn, and they stayed fighting Muslims and killing Muslims and attacking caravans and so on. So Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu went to them in Al-Nahrawan, Al-Nahrawan, remember that name? And he killed most of them in that battle, and the rest ran away. Yes. Why did Ali kill them? Because they were attacking Muslims. Just like if we are living here in Raleigh, and then some group of people gather in the way between Raleigh and Cary and keep cutting off roads and killing people and kidnapping people and stuff like this. The police, of course, and maybe the National Guard will go and fight them. So this is what Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu did. Good question. Okay, next question. Next slide. Sophie?
Okay, so who are the Khawarij? I'm going to simplify it. We're going to simplify it really a lot here. Okay? And if you want to learn more, I encourage you to go explore more on your own. There are plenty of lectures from the Shaykh on YouTube. But in essence, there were rebels who split out of Ali radiallahu anhu's leadership. They did not want to be led by Ali radiallahu anhu, and they accused him of not being a Muslim. So, the Prophet ﷺ told us this about them. They are immature and narrow-minded, and even though they pray, fast, and recite more than what normal Muslims do, the Quran doesn't exist in their toes, essentially. They don't recite the Quran, they don't follow the Quran, they don't understand the Quran, they don't implement the Quran. And it shows us something here, which I'm going to pause for a second. So it shows us something here. Rasulullah is pointing out that even though they do more than us, right? He makes it a point to emphasize the Quran and their understanding of the Quran. So as a side point here, those who memorize the Quran and learn the Quran should always, and it shows the emphasis of understanding and implementing the Quran as well. They were not from the Sahaba of Rasulullah, meaning they did not accept Islam and see the Prophet during his lifetime, but they were from other areas that were conquered by Muslims, like Egypt, Iraq, Yemen. So for example, when like Khalid ibn Walid and them conquered these areas under Khalifa Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, or under Umar radiallahu anhu, these were the lands that they conquered, and the Khawarij were from these areas. They didn't understand the Sharia, they didn't understand why they had to pray, why they had to fast, why they had to give zakah, why all these rules are there. They didn't understand the fundamentals of Islam. And a big part of Islam is understanding why you are doing what you're doing, why you're praying salah, why you're giving zakah. Always ask why. Also, when they didn't understand Islam, they got very aggressive. Right? They got very aggressive with people who tried to correct them. They didn't, even though they didn't understand Islam completely, they jumped to conclusions when it came to religion, right? When it came to Sharia, when it came to fiqh, when it came to all these other matters, even though they themselves didn't completely understand it, they still jumped to conclusions.
Yes, this
Lack of understanding from them of the comprehensive way of life Islam provides and the Quran provides to everybody. So they were very narrow-minded, as the Prophet ﷺ said, Sufaha'ul Ahlam, very narrow-minded. They get stubborn on very trivial things while leaving the big aspects of Islam alone. Some examples of this, when they get stubborn, and actually why we are talking about Al-Khawarij, because their ideas are being repeated over and over, even in our current time. Right now, some people are doing similar things like Al-Khawarij, maybe not on the full scale of Al-Khawarij, but some parts of their ideology and their way is being done, getting too stubborn about some fiqh issue, very light fiqh issue, and they get too stubborn and they accuse the party that doesn't follow their opinion as a kafir or fasiq or not good Muslim and so on and so forth, very stubbornly, while they really don't understand the complete picture of Islam and the complete understanding of the goals of Sharia. The goals of Sharia now, okay? What are the goals of Sharia? Number one, for the goals of Sharia is to protect and preserve the deen, the religion itself, the religion of the people, the religion of the society. And the second one after that is preservation of life and the well-being of the human being living in that area. So this is the second goal of Sharia. Remember those in sequence. First is protection of deen. The second is protection of life. The third is protection of mind or intellect, not to be intoxicated, not to have strange ideas, not to have, weird ideas in the minds of people and so on, wicked ideas. So to protect the intellect of the people is part of the Sharia. It's the third item of the goals of Sharia. And then the fourth one is to protect the next generation, the descendants. The next generation is very important. So the Sharia is putting a lot of emphasis on protection of the next generation as well. Many rules under that part. We're not going to get into too many details, but this is the fourth one. And then the last one, actually, in the goals of Sharia, there are other side goals, but those are the main goals. The other one is the protection of wealth and property and money for the people. So remember those in sequence: deen, nafs, which is life, and then mind or intellect, and then brain, and then descendants, and then last one is property or money or wealth. Next slide. Some unfortunate fights between Muslims, like the Battle of Al-Jamal. We're not going to get into too many details. Those are very long stories. A lot of debates about them. I mean, it's very confusing, so it's not the right forum for it. Al-Jamal and Siffin, the Battle of Siffin, just remember those two names. Those were very unpleasant and unnecessary fights between Muslims. The main reasons for them was the dispute over how to deal with the killers of Uthman ibn Affan. How to deal with the killers of Uthman ibn Affan caused a lot of division among Muslims at that time, to the extent that some of them rebelled from Ali ibn Abi Talib, and they accused him of being too soft on them and so on, and they fought, unfortunately. And then the battle also of Siffin, and also the battles between Muslims and Al-Khawarij at that time. So it was those 4.5 years. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless Ali ibn Abi Talib that he survived all those problems in his era and kept the Muslim community and Islam strong as much as he could. What we learn from this, so the reasons for those dispute, how to deal with the killers of Uthman, rumors and conspiracies from outsiders to ignite the conflict and between Muslims and create divisions. And we need to remember something here, that this period and those battles and problems caused Muslims to be delayed many years from opening or conquering Europe and other parts of Asia and other parts of Africa and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا. Pay attention, please, sisters. So, وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Don't confuse your power amongst yourselves. Otherwise, your power will go away and will not be effective. And this is the advice from the Quran, and we need to keep it in mind whenever we see confusion or dispute between Muslims. Don't escalate it. Try to cut it short in order to keep the power and the focus on most important things.
Says afterwards, and when you see this happening, when you see the Muslims fighting amongst themselves, and you see the argument, and you see the division, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to be patient, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who are patient, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no matter what is happening in the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for it. And no matter what happens between Muslims, and no matter what happens between the outside world and us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of His religion.
Okay, next slide.
So 3 of the remaining Khawarij, after the battle of Nahawan, conspired to kill Ali radiallahu anhu, Muawiyah, and Amr ibn Ala at the same time. Oh, okay, that's close. Amr ibn al-As. Both Amr ibn al-As and Muawiyah survived with only injuries, but Ali radiallahu anhu was killed by Abdul Rahman ibn Muljim in the Khutbah Mosque in Fajr prayer in the year 40 at the age of 63 years old. The Muslims chose his oldest son, Al-Hassan, to take his place as the Khalifa.
And this picture is from
The Kufa mosque. Ali ibn Abi Talib took the Khilafah actually to be based in Al-Kufa, because most of his supporters at that time, the people who are willing to fight with him and so on, were in Al-Kufa at that time, so he took it as the capital of the Islamic States. Any questions? Okay, let me ask you, since you don't have any question, let me ask you one question, while Talib can get the Kahoot. Yes, اتفضل. The Kufa mosque was just the great mosque in Al-Kufa, where it was the capital of the Islamic State at that time. And Ali ibn Abi Talib was praying there. I don't know. This is just why Raleigh was called Raleigh and why Durham is called Durham. We will not end. Okay. Any other questions before I ask? Why the caravan, when Ali was migrating, was called Caravan of Fatima? Yes. Why? Why? All of the ladies on that
من
caravan were
أصحاب
Fatima.
رسول
Yes.
الله رجال
Take one,
عشرة
take one.
خير الناس بعد الرسل كرام بررة
Okay,
صدقوا
sister.
العهد مع
You
الرحمن
have a question?
فجزاهم فرحا
Oh, you
ومسرة
wanted to answer? Can you
بشراهم
name one of the
بالجنة
Fatima?
سبقت يا للبشرى يا للبشرى